Hey there Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. Okay, so in today's video we are going to be taking a look at how you can find your enemies using astrology. So we're going to be looking at the birth chart again today. However, before we do get started, definitely make sure that you give this video a like if you like it. Also make sure to subscribe if you have not already, and to of course click that little bell icon so that you can keep yourself updated with further content from myself. And one more quick thing to mention is that I have a merchandise store, and if you're interested in purchasing any of those items, then definitely feel free, go to the link in the description box below. I've added Aquarius to my merchandise, by the way, just wanted to say that. So with all of that being said, let's do this. Right, so first and foremost, let's look at the definition of what an enemy actually is. And according to Google Dictionary, an enemy is a person who is actively opposed or hostile to someone or something. And then to be hostile is to show or feel opposition or dislike. So basically, unfriendliness. Okay, so now we know what an enemy is. Where can you find it within the birth chart? Well, the first main house that I want to bring your attention towards is the 7th house and the descendant, because it's this area of life that can show you the types of people who might oppose you in life. Now, what I'm about to say is very important, because on one hand, the 7th house or the descendant can represent the types of people that you're really looking for in a relationship. But on the other hand, it can also show you the types of people who you can't stand or who can't stand you. Sort of think of your first house or your rising sign representing you as the protagonist of your own personal story, that is your life. Whilst the 7th house and the descendant, they can signify others who act as the antagonist within your story. These are the people who you might not trust all too well. They're people whose motives and choices and actions that you just don't fully understand, or maybe their choices and their actions and so on, they really get on your nerves. These are the people who you find just unsettling to be around. But contrary to what you might think of such people, it's also these same individuals that can teach you a great deal. It's these people that you can learn from, provided that you want to. Take the movie The Lion King, for example. Simba is the protagonist in the movie. He is the hero, the main character. But he also has a lot to learn. He's much to learn about the world. But then Scar is the antagonist in the movie. Scar is the villain, the darker character whose main goal is to bring Simba down so that he can rise up and rule the Pride Lands. Now, whilst Simba did not agree with Scar's principles of rulership, he was still able to learn from Scar how not to do things, how not to rule, how not to behave or act. I suppose you could say Simba saw a reflection in Scar of the character that he could be, but chose not to be. Basically, it's the antagonist that is the character or the people in your life that can create chaos, they can create conflict. So what we do is we try to fight against these people as they fight against us, resulting in a rivalry, resulting in this friction, competition, resulting in an enemy. Now, of course, our stories as humans, and they're not as black and white as movies like The Lion King. But the whole point that I'm trying to get to is that often in life we can experience this me against them dynamic. So with that being said, let's get into some examples within the chart in order to really make this more understandable. So let's say you have a Scorpio rising with a Taurus descendant. Your protagonist qualities are that of renewal, change, depth, and transformation. And it's these qualities that can feel quite nerve-wracking and unsettling and uncomfortable to people who have more Taurus qualities, possibly resulting in a feud. And the reason for why I say this is because, well, Taurus energy, it's much more supporting, it's much more reliable, it's solid, and it's immovable. But what I also want you to keep in mind is that if you do have a Scorpio rising, you are an individual who might actually seek out these qualities, so those qualities of Taurus that I said about, within a relationship. So this whole idea of seeking out commitment and stability and dependability and loyalty. But as you are seeking these things out, what may also come about with this is you experiencing times when conflicts arise over this whole change, which is more Scorpio rising, versus stability, which is more Taurus descendant dynamic. Or also when it comes to this transformative, which is more Scorpio rising, versus the more reliable, which is more Taurus descendant dynamic. In this instance, if you do have a Scorpio rising, then people who have personal planets within the sign of Taurus, well, they're going to fall into your 7th house. And suggesting then that it's these types of people that, yes, as I say, you can be attracted to, you may seek out these types of individuals within a relationship, but there can also just as much be the conflict. There can be the frustrations. Another example is, let's say you have a Cancer rising and then you've got Capricorn of the descendant. Well, your protagonist qualities are that of warmth and comfort and nurture and emotional security. And it's these qualities that can feel quite unsettling between you and those who have more of the Capricorn qualities, again resulting in some strife. So the reason why I say this is because people with Capricorn qualities, they tend to be more about discipline and ambition and prestige and business. Capricorns may be more focused on that ambitious side of life, more of the business, over the family orientated side of life, for example. Again though, if you do have a Cancer rising, you might seek out a relationship that involves structure and commitment. You might seek out the type of relationship that lasts a long time, something that's more pragmatic and constructive. But you might also come up against oppositions within your relationship that involve, as I say, a family versus work dynamic, or that involve an emotional versus practical dynamic. I hope you get where I'm sort of coming from here. So with this instance, if you have a Cancer rising, people who have Capricorn placements, they're going to fall into your 7th house. Now, another thing I think is important to note is, yes, the oppositions, these enemies, so to speak, it could be that they have personal planets within that particular sign, so those planets that fall under your 7th house, but it may also be a situation where they're very dominant in that sign. So with the Cancer rising versus the Capricorn energy, maybe certain individuals have dominant Capricorn energy. But then with the Scorpio rising example that I just previously mentioned versus the Taurus energy, it could be that that individual has dominant Taurus energy. So I hope you get what I mean. So dominant signs could also come into play here. And also just qualities, certain qualities and behaviors that people bring out, on a day-to-day basis. So definitely keep that in mind, okay? Now, another thing I want you to remember that is quite important is how these oppositions can play out not only between the first house and the seventh house, but they can also play out between your personal planets versus someone else's personal planets who are opposing yours. So this could be the likes of your sun sign opposing another person's sun sign, for example. Plus, they can also play out between the planets, so those actual planets going on within your own personal birth chart, such as your Mercury opposing your moon, for example, within your own chart. So going off the example that I said of the sun sign versus another sun sign, let's say that you're a Libra and you meet someone who is an Aries. Yes, there may be a powerful dynamic. You may admire and appreciate the Aries passion and their energy and their courage. Maybe you like how the Aries focuses their attention on you because of the newness and the excitement and the thrill that you experience. But then you might start to pick up on some other things that the Aries does. Maybe the Aries individual starts being pushy and demanding and inconsiderate, or maybe they start to act in a way that is brash and uncivilized and rude in your opinion, where they're fine with starting a fight if they need to. And you, as the Libra person, you start to rethink this relationship or this friendship, whatever it may be. Maybe you can't actually stand their straightforward, zero thought out way of doing things, and so you might distance yourself. Or maybe instead of being upfront with the Aries individual over how you're feeling, you actually go quiet, or you start acting in passive aggressive ways. Then let's say the Aries person picks up on this, and then they can become defensive and frustrated, because Aries people are the types of people who want just upfront honesty from others. So now in this situation, both parties are annoyed with each other, possibly resulting in an enemy situation. So what was once a friendly encounter turns into a playground for bickering and disharmony. And this is merely one example, okay? It's just one example, but I do hope you guys get where I'm coming from with this. And then also make sure to apply this to other personal planets. So this could be the likes of you having your Mercury in Gemini and then someone else having their Mercury in Sagittarius. Or this could be the likes of you having your Venus in Virgo and then another person having their moon in Pisces. Now, of course, the way things play out, it's going to differ. It's really going to differ depending on the sign and the planet. Now, again, I'm just sharing some examples, but essentially when planets oppose one another in the birth chart, it can create conflict, it can create discord. Now, likewise, remember this when it comes to your own chart as well, between your own planets. So for example, let's say you have Sun opposing Uranus in your natal birth chart. Then you might experience this irritability or this tension when it comes to your personality or when it comes to your ego. There might be sudden unpredictable decisions that you make that divert you off the path that you're on or that go against your character. Basically, there can be this shaky instability that has existed within your life, and at times you might become really annoyed by it, especially if you're the type of individual who is someone who strives for belonging and stability and comfort and so on. It's as if that rebellious Uranus energy acts like an enemy to your ego, whilst that noble Sun energy acts like an enemy to your non-conforming itch to break free at times. Though, in terms of what you can learn from the energies that oppose you within your birth chart, this is also where self-awareness and integration can come into play. So much like Simba identified with how he didn't want to act or behave, we too can become aware of the qualities we don't necessarily wish to act out either. So let's say you have a Virgo rising or Pisces with Pisces on the descendant like me. You might not necessarily like people who are vague and flaky and passive. You might not like people who play the victim all the time, or people who delude themselves by believing in something that just isn't true. Well, I'm here to tell you that when you get into a relationship, when you enter into a relationship with another person, you might actually start to act out some or more of these very qualities without even realizing it. However, this does not necessarily have to be a Pisces person that you get into a relationship with. Just want to say that it can be, but it's more so the qualities that are happening within the 7th house. But still, what might happen here is that your friend or your partner, they might say something to you like, "You're living in La La Land," or "Would you just get to the point? You're being too vague." And then maybe you as the Virgo rising individual, you feel the need to defend yourself when this happens because you really don't see this. You think that you're someone who is very practical and grounded and your head is not in the clouds. But that's just the thing. You don't, nor will you ever fully see what another person sees in you. And that's the beauty of relationships, whether that relationship be a harmonious or a disharmonious one. Remembering here that both of these dynamics are going to exist within our relationships. So let's say then you have a Leo rising with Aquarius on the descendant. You might not like people who are pretentious, know-it-alls, who are erratic and startling and all over the place. You might not like people who come across as detached or who have a difficulty with expressing their emotions. But then you get into a relationship with someone else and then you start acting out these qualities. That partner or that friend of yours might turn around and say to you, "You never open up to me," or "I find you really difficult to reach sometimes." And so again, you might start to be on the defense. You might think it's the other person who said these things that is the problem and you're not the problem. But what if within our relationships we reflected a bit in order to identify whether or not we actually are the problem, or at least a part of it? After all, it takes two to tango, as the saying goes. So bringing this whole idea of self-awareness and integration into play, perhaps it could be suggested that the qualities located within your 7th house, they can become integrated into your conscious awareness in order for you to experience a more fulfilling and satisfying relationship with others. So take someone with Virgo on the 7th. So they've got Pisces rising, Virgo on the 7th. Maybe by becoming aware of their tendency to be criticizing or correcting, they can integrate these qualities where they can use such qualities as tools, effective tools, yes, but they can also become aware of times whenever they're being too hard on their partner, for example. And then instead of going in for the kill with that criticism, they hold back a little bit and they just think it through a little bit more consciously. Or let's take someone with an Aries rising and then Libra on the 7th. Maybe by becoming aware of their tendency to be far too accommodating and agreeable for their own good once in a relationship, they can integrate these qualities by using them as tools, yes, and also by becoming aware of times when they don't speak up to express their decision with their partner, for example. So instead of keeping false pace that can lead to just more discord, they can say what they really think in a more cautious, harmonious way. Hopefully with the intention of creating an honest, peaceful outcome. And similarly, this self-awareness, so this integration process, I also think it can apply when it comes to your personal planets versus somebody else's personal planets, and also between planets within your own personal birth chart as well. But keeping it with the 7th house, another important thing to note is how the 7th house is about balance and sharing and cooperation. It's a very give and take type of house. Now, like I said, a particular relationship requires two people involved, and so it creates a back and forth dynamic, a type of seesaw, if you will. So it's important to listen to our partner's feedback and for them to listen to ours, etc. Relationships really are a two-way street in this way. But the thing we can learn from others can really help us when it comes to our own self-development and our own personal growth. And yes, even our enemies, or even when our lover or our friend says something that makes us feel like they are our enemy, even these people can help us when it comes to our own self-development and personal growth. So just as Simba ran away from his opposition or his opponent in The Lion King, we too can kind of do this in our own lives. Now, don't get this mistaken with staying in a relationship that is unsafe or is really dead. That's not what I'm trying to say here. What I'm saying is that in our one-on-one relationships, there can be times when those that we love, they can become our enemy, okay? They can feel like our rival. They can feel like the antagonist, resulting in a fight or a flight response. But it's within this me versus them position that both ourselves and our partners, we can grow. Then what I want to say with this is I'm still learning from this. I don't think we ever stop learning when it comes to this. I don't know, maybe whenever we get to a certain age, I'm not sure, I'm not there yet. But for me personally, I'm still learning. And relationships, they definitely do require work. Like I said, give and take, guys, give and take. I just find this really very interesting because, especially today, there's a lot of information out there that just talks about cutting people off and talks about negative people and toxicity, but then it's like, have we really reflected on our own toxicity? Like, could it be that we are the problem? The other area of life that I want to discuss today is the 12th house. Now, the main difference between the 7th and the 12th is that the 7th is more associated with open enemies, whilst the 12th is to do with secret hidden enemies. Both require inner work, but these hidden enemies are considerably more challenging to address because it's the 12th that can be associated with our hidden weaknesses. And this is actually a theory that I find in Howard Saspertaz's book, The 12 Houses, but I want to explore it more deeply. So he stated that these secret enemies can quite literally mean people plotting or conspiring against us, but it's more likely to pertain to hidden weaknesses and forces in ourselves which undermine the realization of our conscious goals and objectives. So with that being said, let's break this down. Let's say, for example, that you have Gemini in the 12th house. Then this can quite literally mean people with Gemini placements that fall into your 12th house plotting against you or conspiring against you from behind the scenes. Or it might suggest a rivalry over Gemini-like qualities, so over the likes of communication, learning, and connection, and so on. Maybe you strongly dislike people who act smarter than they are. Or maybe you strongly dislike people who are all nice to people's faces, but then behave the complete opposite whenever those people's backs are turned. Or let's say you have Libra in the 12th house. Again, this could quite literally translate into people with Libra placements that fall in your 12th house plotting against you from behind the scenes. Or it might suggest a rivalry over Libra-like qualities, so over the likes of partnership, harmony, compromise, and so on. Maybe you really don't like people who are superficial or who are very image-focused within relationships. Maybe you can't stand fake people or people who are vain. So with the Gemini example, maybe those who plot against you do so with words, they do so with lies and trickery. And then with the Libra example, maybe those who plot against you, they do so by acting like your ally or by using sweet and kind words to get you on their side, but really they're not actually on your side. However, before we do go further into this, please don't be thinking that all people whose planets fall in your 12th house, that they are secret enemies of yours. Do not assume or judge people, okay? Please don't think that. And also remember discernment, because you might not know what inner work another person has done, and you might not know that person at all, basically. And also, just like I mentioned with the 7th house, we can also learn from our rivals. Like I said, we can learn from the things that we dislike in others and from the things that people dislike within us as well. Oh, and also, contrary to my views a few years ago, I think it's actually okay to dislike certain people for qualities they possess or for actions they do that we don't agree with. Because realistically speaking, right, not everyone is going to like you, nor do they have to like you, and you don't necessarily like everyone. I mean, I don't like everyone, so I'm just trying to be as realistic and as practical as I possibly can with this, but still, this doesn't mean that we should make it our mission to bring down people that we dislike. You know, there's a big difference between just disliking certain qualities about someone versus going out of our way to plot against them and to bring them down with a vengeance kind of thing, okay? Now, in the case of the 12th house, yes, it can mean these types of things, you know, that I mentioned with the whole secret enemies, etc., and those qualities, but by unraveling our 12th house, hopefully we can work with this blind spot within our chart. Because, like I said, it's also this house that can pertain to hidden weaknesses and forces in ourselves which can undermine our goals and objectives. Now, I have made a video all about how you can find your blind spots in the birth chart, so definitely be sure to check that out if you have not already. So with that, let's use some more examples to show you just what I mean. So let's say that you have Sagittarius in the 12th or Jupiter in the 12th even. You might rival with others over knowledge or understanding or over faith as well. You might dislike super preachy people. You might also dislike people who are overzealous and greedy, but your hidden weaknesses are associated with such things. Maybe acting in a way that was self-indulgent or gluttonous or preachy. That's something that wasn't actually encouraged, or maybe these things undermined your goals in some way, or maybe behaving in a manner that is more laid back and just easygoing. That was not something you were encouraged to do, especially if you have a Capricorn rising with Sagittarius in the 12th. It was like, no, you need to work hard for what you want. No lucky breaks here. And another example could be Capricorn in the 12th or Saturn in the 12th. You might rival with others over social status or over power, or over control. Maybe you strongly dislike super strict, stern people who behave in a cold manner, people who are rigid or who boss others around. But your hidden weaknesses are associated with these very things. So maybe behaving in a way that is demanding or restrictive or dictatorial. These things have actually undermined your goals or your objectives in life, or maybe acting like a big boss was not something encouraged by others. Especially if you have an Aquarius rising with Capricorn in the 12th, you're typically known as the free spirit, remember? The person who is more humanitarian, kind, and generous to all people. So I hope from these examples I've been able to explain this secret enemy theory in a way that is practical and understandable. And I also feel the need to mention that these things can play out in different ways. And it's also good to think of that 12th house enemy energy in association with qualities rather than in association with solely people who have planets that fall into your 12th house. I just thought I would mention that again. Though, of course, the final thing that I want to talk about today is to do with that whole idea of self-awareness and integration again, because much like with the 7th house, it can be beneficial to us to work with our 12th house rather than against it. So by working with it, we can turn a hidden weakness into a talent. So, for example, if you've got Aquarius in the 12th or Uranus in the 12th, instead of your unpredictable, non-conforming energy undermining your goals, why not see how these qualities can be used as an opportunity to be explored? You might often feel isolated from the world, but maybe these feelings of isolation can be used and placed into something bigger, such as you helping others who also feel isolated and alone. Or let's say you've got Aries in the 12th or Mars in the 12th, instead of your assertive action energy undermining your goals, maybe you can use these qualities as an opportunity. Sure, you might often feel so much tension just building up, boiling up within you because you find it hard to direct your energy effectively, but maybe these things can be placed into something just greater, such as you getting involved with others who also feel the same way. Just remember with this that whilst the 12th house, yes, it's a house associated with great pain and suffering and sacrifice, it's also a house associated with empathy and forgiveness and healing. So just keep that in mind when it comes to the 12th house being a house of secret enemies, because just as others can become our rivals, they can also become our allies and vice versa. Just really depends, I guess, on where you're at, where other people are at in life. And as I said, it's also a learning process with opportunities for change. Okay then, Cosmic Warriors, so that concludes my video on how you can find your enemies using astrology. Now, if you do happen to have any thoughts and opinions on today's video, then definitely let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. I would love to hear those because it was a really interesting video, I think. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And of course, if you would like to see more videos from myself and you have not yet subscribed, then make sure that you click that subscribe button, and also make sure that you give this video a like, remember. And I will be back with another video very, very soon. Bye!